was that the plan was because they believed that the World Trade Center was a symbol of everything that was America.
It is. Damn, it is.
And back then, what they wanted to do, and this was the plan, was to blow up one...
Susan, hold me 1 second. We got to go to Brokaw. Something's going on. Let's go to NBC News.
We're uncertain at that time. This is a live picture of Lower Manhattan, missing two of its most familiar profiles, obviously. The twin trade towers of the World Trade Center. Iconic buildings here in New York, really representing, symbolic, if you will, the enormous economic strength of this country. They sustained an attack in 1993. They were reopened. The country came back from that, and we went about our merry way again, thinking that in Fortress America this couldn't possibly happen. But of course it has. Neil Livingston is one of the most widely recognized experts on international terrorism. Mr. Livingston, we keep coming back to the same issue. This was a very sophisticated attack. This was not just a lone suicide bomber of some kind. 4 hijacking simultaneously. Obviously someone in the cockpit who knew how to get the plane to the targets that they wanted to get them to. And it had to have happened over a long period of time, and they were all transcontinental flights loaded with fuel.
Tom, this is our worst-case nightmare scenario, the one that we've hoped would never happen, and that would be a multiplicity of targets with a multiplicity of highly sophisticated bombs, in this case aircraft, and very symbolic targets. And so this great deal of thought went into this, a great deal of time and money. This kind of thing doesn't happen overnight. So we can anticipate that maybe a year or more was probably devoted to planning this attack, and there may be others coming.
Mr. Livingston, I remember that the FBI has been concerned for some time about the number of cells harboring terrorists in America that have been growing. Is that true?
Well, there clearly are a number of people in the United States that have been the beneficiaries of our relatively liberal immigration policy that have hidden within various communities here and have expressed very strong anti-American sentiments. Whether that can be translated into terrorism at this point is open to question. I would suspect that what we will see in this case are perhaps foreign nationals who have arrived in the United States strictly to carry out this mission, hijack these aircrafts and take them to their targets. Very similar to what we saw in that millennial potential attack when a man was arrested at the border in Washington State who was going to carry out bombing attacks in the United States. He was an outsider who had been sent here to do that.
All right, Neil Livingston, thank you very much. I also have on the phone now Anthony Lake, Tony Lake, a former National Security Advisor to President Clinton, who's been a longtime student of the prospect of terrorism in this country, recently wrote a riveting fictional account of the various scenarios that the United States may have to deal with. But even in your most wildest imaginative days, Tony, you could not have anticipated something like this.
No, it's terrible. It's hard to say you can be lucky in any respect in something in such a catastrophe. But one of the great dangers still lurking out there is that it could have involved some kind of weapon of mass destruction.
But at the same time, it's hard to understate the amount of damage that has been done here physically and certainly in terms of loss of life. When you have an institution like the Pentagon attacked, the World Trade Center is attacked, and the plane that went to Pittsburgh might have been headed for the Capitol or the White House.
Yes. No, this is terrible. As I said, a catastrophe. Clearly a very sophisticated terrorist attack. Our intelligence community has headed off some in the past year or two. Their ability to evade our usual intelligence gathering methods in order to pull this off is extraordinary. And one question now we need to focus on is not only why did this happen, but where do we go from here?
Well, short term, if you were the National Security Advisor now back in your old office in the White House, what would be your recommendations in terms of a suppression of some of our normal liberties that we have in this country?
Well, we mustn't defeat our liberties in trying to defend them. I think what I would be urging now is, first of all, of course, get all the information we can immediately while dealing with the human dimensions of this catastrophe. And then thinking ahead, I think there are 3 fronts we have to act on. One, there must be, once we have identified the source of this, there must be an American response to this of some kind.
And once again, we are going to interrupt the NBC News special coverage. The situation here in our
All right, that was Tom Brokaw with Neil Livingston, who is a terrorism expert. And really what he's telling you is that this was such a sophisticated deployment of terrorism around the country, really the government's greatest fear, that there would be multiple sites, multiple times, and the only thing that lacked, to our betterment was that they would use a weapon of mass destruction, which fortunately has not happened. But what they did, which was obviously something that was not considered feasible or any plan that was considered to be high risk, is they took American commercial airlines and used them as their weapons, and they knew they couldn't fly a plane into our airspace. They can't do that. You can't get a plane through. You can't get it, but you can get a commercial airline through, because that goes on all the time, and they don't check them. And now you got them flying around the country. They also took planes that were headed from the East Coast to California, so they had large amounts of fuel, and they were large planes. And obviously this deployment was done in a way that was absolutely, you hate to say it, but brilliant. I mean, this was an incredible deployment of force in our country in a short amount of time. I mean, had to be worked on. They said a year. This had to be worked on 5 years. I mean, they had to have people on the inside. You don't know how they got in the cockpit of these planes. Did they have people who were personnel on the plane? Did they have a pilot on the plane? Did they have a co-pilot on the plane? Who knows who they had? Before I get back to Susan, just let me run through the timeline real quickly if you're joining us. 8:42 this morning, as Susan was alluding to as an eyewitness, the attacks start with the first hijacked plane that hits the South Tower. At 9:03, the first people were running around wondering if it was an accident, something crazy. Did a pilot have a heart attack? Who knew what was going on then? Second one hits, and you know that this is without question an attack of terrorism. At 9:03, the second one hits the North Tower. At the time, around 9:40, a third plane crashes amazingly into the Pentagon. And there's been reports there have been fatalities there, and almost penetrates the inner rings of the Pentagon, which was considered to be technically impossible. They almost penetrated, these 5 rings almost penetrated the inner rings of the Pentagon. And Washington, D.C. then goes into a code red, which means they clear out the Capitol. They clear out everybody of importance in the city. They hide everybody. They were not bringing the president back here. The president was in Sarasota. Everyone said he was flying back to Washington. There was no way. Now, when he's in the air on Air Force One, that's a situation room anyway. He can fly in the air and deploy everything he needs to deploy around the world. They take his cabinet to a specific place. He went to Louisiana. Everybody was scattered around. Then at 9:59, the South Tower collapses, reportedly with people still inside, is just as horrific as that sounds. And then at 10:28, the North Tower collapses. And then, of course, we find out that there's another hijacked plane, 2 others. One, obviously, that had landed, into the Pentagon, and then one, obviously, that crashed in Pennsylvania, which everyone assumes was headed for the Capitol or headed for a big building in Washington, and was probably taken down by our own Air Force, which is a distinct possibility. We are now in a national state of emergency. New York is digging out from a devastation. The city is closed. The armed forces are on the highest possible alert, which is threat condition Delta, and that means that we are, in essence, at war. I mean, there's nothing short of that, and something this country, the Gulf War was basically a small move in terms of military force compared to what's going on in the world right now. Probably not since the Cuban Missile Crisis has there been probably the kind of deployment that there is right now in the world of American force around the world. And it's going to be interesting these next 24 hours exactly what happens. And that's where we stand right now. As far as the city, we'll keep you up to date. Don't drive if you don't have to. If you got home, just be happy you did. If you're still in the city, be patient. And hopefully it'll start to open up little by little. And we're going to have to dig out of this devastation. And this is going to be one that's going to be felt forever, for a long, long time to come. Let's, before I get back to Susan, let me get to Christy. And Christy, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, we actually just found something over the wire kind of interesting. Of course, prior to these attacks today in New York and Washington, Timothy McVeigh's destruction in Oklahoma City.
Which almost seems like a ripple now.
Exactly, 168 Americans dead in that one, of course. And today we don't even want to speculate on what the fatalities may be. But his father, Bill McVeigh, says that he watched in shock as the coverage unfolded on the tragedies. He said that he was finishing a round of golf this morning, and he watched the coverage on television from his home in Pendleton, which is near Buffalo. He declined to make any comparisons between today's attack and Oklahoma City. He said, quote, "I don't want to get into that." So, I mean, that was kind of an interesting little side note. And also, this just came over, that United Flight 93 that crashed in western Pennsylvania. Apparently, there is a terrifying account by a passenger aboard that flight. He was able to go into the bathroom, lock the door, and make an emergency call on his cell phone. And it went into the dispatcher, an emergency dispatcher, and the man said, we're being hijacked, kind of frantically, just before that plane crashed. And
It must have been close to the ground, otherwise the cell phone wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, well, that's it's apparently taken from the transcript.
I mean, that's he would have to be. It would almost have to be in the last
Right before
seconds,
they crashed.
because if you're up too high, they
Well,
don't
let's
work.
see. Okay, the flight was headed from Newark to San Francisco, and the crash happened near Somerset County Airport,
Plus,
about
that
80
would-
miles southeast of Pittsburgh.
Plus, that call, which I find skeptical for this reason, too, because we kind of think that plane was probably either forced down or shot down, because it was headed, according to officials in Pennsylvania and Virginia, for a Washington building, the Capitol, White House, Camp David. So that was probably either forced down or shot down by our own Air Force. I don't know if that guy would... That one, I'm a little skeptical
You're going to
of,
get
but,
all
yeah.
kinds of things that people
Yeah.
are going to say, because anybody
I mean, I'm
who's
not
ever
saying it's
flown
wrong.
in an airplane.
Yeah.
That
That
was a pretty
was-
reliable source.
that
from
was
Well, it could have
kinda-
gone into the dispatch. It doesn't mean he was on the plane.
True.
He could have, someone could have phonied it in there, too. Who knows? But, I mean, that one I'm a little skeptical of, only because we don't even know what happened to that plane yet. That plane could have been blown up in the air. We don't even know yet.
There
Yeah.
is one interesting thing that just came over the wire, Mike and Christie. A Pentagon spokesman confirming that Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld was in the Pentagon when the plane struck the building, and Rumsfeld evidently is okay and help people get out of the building.
Well,
so
evidently,
he was there.
the big offices of the power brokers is on the other side of the Pentagon. They hit the wrong side of the building. So that's one thing they did wrong with their intelligence. They actually hit the side of the building that does not have the decision makers in it. They are on the other side of the Pentagon. So while they did probably, reportedly, we don't know for factual yet, but they did reportedly kill people in the Pentagon, they did not kill the decision makers who were on the other side of the building.
Evidently, that part of the Pentagon that was hit,
Right.
too, had just undergone some renovations or, some expansion, and so it's really hard to believe, the whole thing.
All right, let me get to the president here. He spoke for a couple of minutes from Louisiana, where they ushered him off after he left Sarasota. And let's hear President Bush.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended. I want to reassure the American people that the full resources of the federal government are working to assist local authorities to save lives and to help the victims of these attacks. Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts. I've been in regular contact with the Vice President, Secretary of Defense, the National Security Team, and my cabinet. We have taken all appropriate security precautions to protect the American people. Our military at home and around the world is on high alert status, and we have taken the necessary security precautions to continue the functions of your government. We have been in touch with the leaders of Congress and with world leaders to assure them that we will do whatever is necessary to protect America and Americans. I ask the American people to join me in saying a thanks for all the folks who have been fighting hard to rescue our fellow citizens, and to join me in saying a prayer for the victims and their families. The resolve of our great nation is being tested. But make no mistake, we will show the world that we will pass this test. God bless.
President Bush in Louisiana. Now, you're going to find out, people have been wondering, people have been questioning George Bush. What kind of person is he? How bright is he? This and that. About the election, people unhappy the way the whole thing was solved. Supreme Court, the whole deal. You're going to find out now whether this man can lead the country. Because this is when you find out. There are 4 or 5 times when you're the president of the country, you got to lead. This is it. This is what it comes down to. And you're either going to step up or you're basically not going to have a grip on the country anymore. That you're either going to take hold of the whole deal or you're not. And you're going to find out in the next 48 hours whether George Bush is going to be a strong president or not. That's what you're going to find out. Now, he has not been inspiring the 2 times I've seen him today. I don't want to get on him. I'm sure he's getting a lot of information. I don't want to be disparaging of the president this time, but, I mean, he has not been awe-inspiring so far, and he has not shown a lot of anger, which is very surprising, considering the devastation and the attack that this country is under. And to put him in front of a bunch of children this morning when the country's under attack was one of the mindless things I've ever seen. But listen, that's more about content than anything right now. Let's get to Lori on what's going on with the way in and out of the city. There isn't too many ways into the city right now. Go ahead, Lori.
You're right, Mike, and there are no ways into Manhattan from any approach. Those A, E, and F trains, once again suspended, so you can't take those going into Manhattan. Also, no trains are running around Manhattan. A couple of buses still going up and down the avenues, but very limited service. Holland, Lincoln Tunnels, George Washington Bridge closed both ways. Triborough, Whitestone, Throgs Neck bridges closed going into the Bronx. They're open Queensbound. At the Verrazano heading into Staten Island, it is open. Tolls are not being collected. Brooklyn bound, it's closed. If you're trying to get to the Verrazano, though, the southbound belt, bumper to bumper back to Cross Bay Boulevard, southbound BQE, also very heavy and slow moving, extremely heavy. On Metro North, you can get a train at Grand Central. Nothing's coming into Manhattan. On the Long Island Railroad, you've got a limited amount of trains leaving Penn Station. They are leaving Penn Station, none coming into Manhattan, and there's limited ferry service leaving Manhattan from Pier 11 at West 30th Street, and that will take you to Hoboken.
Thank you, Lori. I'm Mike Francesa. This is the Mike and the Mad Dog program on a very different day, as different as you could ever have. And the toy department is closed today, folks, which is the world we live in sports. It's not even something you give a thought to today on a day when our country is under attack. Back after this.
WFAN New York.
Hi, this is Olympic gold medalist Rebecca Lobo. It takes a lot of hard work to play pro basketball, and Metrics helps me stay on top of my game. Now you can score big this month with a fantastic Metrics offer exclusively from the Vitamin Shop. As part of the Vitamin Shop's 25th anniversary celebration, you'll save 40% off the suggested retail price on every Metrics product. As a special bonus, get the Metrics Great Shape Kit with a 20-count box of drink mix, a Metrics workout CD, and shaker bottle. A retail value of over $70 for the unbeatable price of $29.97. Stop by and see me, Rebecca Lobo, at the Vitamin Shop on Wall Street, 150 Broadway, New York City, Tuesday, September 11th from 2 to 4 p.m. And get the Metrics Great Shape Kit for just $29.97. Remember, save 40% on every Metrics product until September 30th. This exclusive offer is available only at the Vitamin Shop.
Call 1-800-361-1155 for the Vitamin Shop location nearest you, or log on to vitaminshop.com.
At the Saab sales event this September, you won't get the sound of tubas. You won't hear a bass drum pounding. And there won't be any bells, whistles, dancing ponies, explosions, or hucksters. And none of those. What you will get is a very attractive price for the car that was ranked best mid-luxury car in initial quality by J.D. Power and Associates. It's as simple as that.
Lease a 2001 Saab 9.5 wagon. 36 monthly payments of $399. Total due at lease inception, $2,892.99. Tax, title, insurance, and registration extra. Program expires 10/1/2001. For details and J.D. Power and Associates award information, call 1-800-SAAB-USA. Visit your Tri-State Saab dealer today.
Are you paying too much for your auto insurance? Then listen to what your neighbors are saying about Tri-State Consumer. Scott Okula, Wantagh.
I pay $420 less with Tri-State Consumer for the same coverage, and I have just as much peace of mind.
Eric Nowicki, Middle Island.
Tri-State Consumer saved me over $500, and their service is great.
Wendy O'Connell, Nesconset.
I wanted service and security, as well as savings. Tri-State Consumer gives me all three.
If you're a safe driver, Tri-State Consumer could save you up to $500 or more on your auto insurance. For an instant quote, call 1-800-JOIN-NOW. That's 1-800-JOIN-NOW. Or click 800joinnow.com. Tri-State Consumer, where safe drivers rate.
Tri-State Consumer cares about your safety. Get a free, hands-free cell phone ear set when you complete an application. Tri-State Consumer Insurance Company, Jericho, New York.
What's the difference between weekend and business casual? What the heck is a four-in-hand and how do I tie one? It's a semi-formal party. What exactly do I wear? These are the types of questions we've been getting at our new website, menswearhouse.com. That's because we offer an interactive style guru. Ask the guru a question and he'll get back to you with the answer, fast. Are cuffed or plain bottom pants now in fashion? How often should I dry clean a suit? Same types of questions we answer in our stores, but now you can ask them from the comfort of your office or home any time of the day. We call it e-service, and to us it's as much a part of e-commerce as being able to buy things fast and easy, which, by the way, you can do at menswearhouse.com 24/7. You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it. I'm George Zimmer, founder and CEO of the Men's Warehouse.
To ask the guru a question, go to www.menswearhouse.com and click on Guidelines.
Francesa on the fan at 2:17. We're almost 6 hours into this devastation, and it really hasn't cleared up yet. We go to Warner Wolf in the city, who lives 7 blocks from what used to be the World Trade Center. Now it is a rubble, and Warner joins us now. Warner?
All right, Mike. You know,
Warner, one thing here, let me update. New York City Police Department officials tell us now that the death toll is in the thousands, which we expected, but in the thousands today.
Wow. You know, Mike, I was just going over in my mind what I saw this morning. And, again, I'm not a fire expert, but the tower that was hit second.
The North Tower.
The number 2, I don't...
That's the North. The South was hit first. The North was hit second.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the one that went down first. And I remember saying to Imus, the difference in the burning, the fire was more, it was a huge, the North Tower, which is, you say, the first one which was hit, right?
No, the South was hit first.
Oh, the South was hit. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, the South was hit first.
The South was hit first.
Right.
When they were both still standing after both were hit, the South Tower, which is the one on the right, I'm looking south, it was just the smoke. It was more smoke than fire. But the other tower, the one was hit second, the North Tower?
Yes.
That was fire. That where you could see there was a huge difference. The one on the right was heavy smoke. The one on the left was fire. And of course, the one on the left is the one that went down first. And then the problem is the only one standing. That smoke suddenly changed to black. It was like, my gosh, the blackest cloud you could ever see. And I don't know what that meant, but in minutes, that one went down, too.
You know, when I was watching television, and they had someone on who was working for Lehman Brothers, who was giving an account from downstairs about the tower, and talking about and just as she was saying, it sounded like thunder.
Oh.
You heard her screech, and that's when the building collapsed. And it's funny, when we watched this, and not funny, ironic, but you saw these crazy things happening. The first plane, and then you watched the second plane happen on TV, as a lot of New York and a lot of America did, and you saw these two buildings standing there with these two holes in them.
Yeah.
But when the first one went down, there was almost a feeling in your stomach like now we had been totally violated. Now it was war. Now it was, it was almost like that they took the building down. It was almost like a symbol of that this can't stand, that they took, that they put a hole in a building, that unfortunately it's that one person gets hurt is a disaster, But when they destroyed the whole building, it was almost like this can't stand. That's all there is to it. I mean, this has to be dealt with.
You're absolutely right. There was a difference in time. As long as those buildings were standing,
I agree.
It was like, putting aside the deaths.
It's like they leveled New York today. It was like they came in and leveled the city.
Absolutely. As long as they were standing, it was horrible, but it was like, you can't beat us. We're still standing. But you're right, when they went down, that was a different game.
And how is it now? What can you tell me about right now at 2:21, almost 6 hours after the whole first catastrophe? What can you tell me now?
Well, I can tell you, looking out my window, the smoke is just still incredible. I've never seen smoke like this last for so long, and I don't know how longer it will last. It's just the smoke that's what you notice. I mean, you can't go near this. It's just smoke, and wow.
Mike, this is Christy here. Warner, I was going to add that officials were saying people really should stay out of the area, not only because of the danger, of course, of debris or whatever, but the smoke inhalation. A lot of people being taken to the hospital.
And they're saying the building was coated with asbestos when it was built, so that means there's also asbestos particles and gas that have been covered over, but was used when they built in those days. They used asbestos, and that is unbelievably dangerous as far as your lungs, as far as causing cancer. So anyone in that area, you should not be anywhere near there, because just taking that in can cause you serious harm.
Very dangerous.
You're right. That's a good point.
Well, I heard Bo say that with Imus, and he said he worked on the building, and he said all the girders were coated with asbestos and all the walls in those days, and they used to use it in those days.
Yes.
But they coated it over. But now this building was blown to smithereens, so all those asbestos particles are all out there now.
You know what, Mike? The smoke has gotten worse. It has absolutely gotten worse in the time I've been talking to you. It has turned black. Now, I don't know how the television shows it up, but I can tell you, I'm not that far from it. Is black, and it's increased.
We're looking at a live shot, Warren, and you can see that you can't even see completely down the block. I mean, that's how bad it is. And you see these firefighters and these rescue workers just going through the smoke and the rubble. And, there are people in there they're never going to find. I mean, they're never going to find. There are bodies in there that they're just never going to be able to recover. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of floors of just debris. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I was in Oklahoma City when that bombing happened. I was there I was working for a station in Arkansas. And the rescue workers, I mean, the task before them was just unbelievable, going back into that building. But this is being called a Herculean rescue task. I mean, they're going into the bottom, what's left of these buildings, and trying to, and then there, of course, there's a concern of what could happen further, of any kind of a collapse or who knows what structural, if there is anything left, we don't even know.
And you're talking about a couple of hundred people in those buildings. You're talking about 25,000 people estimated to be in these two buildings. And you're talking about buildings that are a quarter mile high into the sky, two of them. I mean, you're talking about a task that is almost impossible. Really, to recover, almost impossible to figure out where people are and where they're buried and where they were. You can't even fathom recovering all these bodies. And right now, they put the death toll, and this is, for people listening, and there's no one who listens or is in and out of our coverage who doesn't know someone. I mean, I know people, Warner knows people, everybody knows people who work in that building. I mean, and work in that area. I mean, no one knows exactly what's going on today. I mean, you just hope you hold your breath, because there's thousands of people who were killed in that area today. They're already putting the death toll in the thousands in New York City.
Unbelievable. At that heaviest time of, rush hour time, when up to, they said, like 10,000 people in each building, then you've got on top of that visitors, so it's just impossible. And Mike, we've got some reaction from world leaders who are, of course, expressing horror and just sympathy for the victims in New York and D.C. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressing both deep sympathy and anger in a telegram to President Bush, and apparently has called on the entire international community to unite in this struggle against terrorism. British Prime Minister Tony Blair spoke out, condemning the attack on the United States.
This mass terrorism is the new evil in our world today. It is perpetrated by fanatics who are utterly indifferent to the sanctity of human life. And we, the democracies of this world, are going to have to come together to fight it together.
And Blair said that he was rushing back to London from, apparently he was at a trade union conference in response to that news. French foreign minister saying he was horrified by the news, and Berlin reacting with Germany's Security Council now set to convene. And Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat also sending his condolences to the U.S. In light of those attacks. Arafat says he is sad about the bombings, and he says we are completely shocked, calling it just simply unbelievable.
And at this time, Christy, no one, the FBI tells us that no one has laid claim to what happened in America today. And this is of such scale that this is actually an act of war. I don't think there will be the normal, typical, pound your chest claim, because they know this is of such magnitude that there will be a complete retaliation immediately if anybody does it. And as soon as they find out who they think did it, there's going to be complete retaliation, whether it's in Afghanistan or wherever it is, and it's going to happen, I think, rather swiftly. I would be shocked if it took 48 hours.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, one of the most respected military men in this country, Senator McCain, as you said, coming out, I think one of the first to say, this is absolutely a declaration of war.
Absolutely. You have to, and I think what will and you don't want to put the cart before the horse, because we're still digging out, and we're worried now about blood and really trying to just figure out where we are and if we're safe and things like that. But as soon as it is through the intelligence, the enormous, vast intelligence network that this country employs around the world, and it's vast. I mean, it's so complicated that none of us even know the beginning of it. But as soon as they put the blame where it's supposed to be, I think there will be enormous retaliation, and the country that is harboring these terrorists is either going to give them up or is going to face a severe situation. I mean, I think he's going to face war.
Yeah. I wanted to update also the situation with the flights around the country. About 50 commercial airliners, Mike, now in the U.S. apparently have reached their destinations. They are safely on the ground. And the FAA has now grounded all commercial flights after those terrorist attacks in the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Those flights that were already in the air were allowed to complete their journeys. And there are still a few international flights that have been cleared to land in the U.S. Other international flights have been diverted to Canada. So the FAA is saying that the national ground stop is going to be indefinite.
Thank you, Christy. All right, let's get you updated on where we are right now as we approach 2:30 here on the Mike and the Mad Dog program on a day as we will not experience many like him, and hopefully in our lifetime we won't again, and we never have in this country, the kind of attack on this nation that was perpetrated today by obviously a terrorist group, one that is vast in its reach and in its resources, and today put forth the kind of terrorist attack that has been written about, that has been talked about, that has been speculated, but never, I think, did anyone believe could be executed in this country with the swiftness and the efficiency that it was today. And, this is almost like some bad movie, somebody's dream. I mean, there have been books that have come close to this kind of stuff, but to use the resources of the commercial airlines of the United States to pull off what was mass destruction in our city and in D.C., and wreak havoc throughout this country in what was in no less than an act of war is just almost unfathomable. And that's where we are, a horrific situation in New York where the NYPD now tells us the death toll is in the thousands. The country is on complete military alert. We're talking about threat condition Delta, which is the highest possible condition of readiness for armed forces both in the United States and around the world. That means you have warships, you have aircraft carriers off our coast, New York, Washington. You have the United States Air Force around the world on alert, in the air. You have all kinds of weapons, including weapons of mass destruction, on the ready. I mean, this is as close to being at war as you can be in this country. And in essence, I would say right now, as the military minds, the Joint Chiefs, the CIA, and everyone who deals with terrorism and deals with these threats, and around the world now our greatest threats come from terrorist groups, not from countries, not from organized nations, that there is no question we are probably as close to war as we have been in this country. Now, you want to get into the Gulf War. The Gulf War was not a war, okay? That was a little military action. We're probably as close to war with some nation in this world than we've probably been since the Cuban Missile Crisis, because I would not be surprised that if they don't the country does not give these terrorists up, that we will be at war very quickly. Maybe I don't expect other countries to be choosing sides. I don't expect a world demonstration or a world war, but I would not be surprised if there is a serious action in the next 24 to 48 hours in this country. Now, as far as immediately in our area, we're hoping that there's safety for the people and that they can save as many lives as they can. New York City hospitals need blood desperately, so if you're within walking distance, go walk to a hospital and give blood. And if you're trying to get out of the city, and hopefully not into the city in any way, but trying to get around the city or out of the city, let's go to Lori.
Okay, Mike, pedestrians now are being allowed to walk one way across the Williamsburg and Brooklyn bridges, and that's going into Brooklyn, not Manhattan-bound. 59th Street Bridge, same thing. You can walk into Queens, but they're not letting anyone walk into Manhattan. Still no way to get into Manhattan right now. All bridges and tunnels are closed. No trains running into or around Manhattan, and no time frame for how long everything's going to stay closed. Now, Metro North, you can get a train at Grand Central. Limited service, but they are running there, and you've got a limited ferry service leaving Manhattan from Pier 11 at West 30th Street. That'll take you to Hoboken. No Amtrak service between New York and Washington, and no Amtrak trains going into Manhattan. Southbound BQE, very heavy, barely moving all the way around. Southbound Belt going to Verrazano, that's bumper to bumper, complete parking lot from Cross Bay Boulevard. And at the Verrazano, heading into Staten Island bound, that opens. Tolls are not being collected. Brooklyn bound, it's closed. Jersey bound, Bayonne, Goethals, Bayonne bridges, all open, but Staten Island bound, they remain closed.
Thank you, Lori. Now, here's where Senator John McCain said, and I totally agree. He told CNN, this is obviously an act of war that has been carried out in the United States of America. McCain said that that this is a situation so serious that words can't describe them, that this can't be these attacks cannot be looked on in any other way but as an act of war that warrants that type of national response. I couldn't agree more in any way. We hope that the people responsible for these horrific events will suffer the full measure of our justice, and I believe that that's what's going to happen here. There is no way the United States can blink, and now, finally, those terrorists, those groups, those liquid, almost invisible groups that you hear about, that you don't know much about. You hear the names. You know they have resources. You hear about their terrorist camps and what they can do. Well, they finally have done it, and they've done it on our shores, and now we have to retaliate the same way we would retaliate if a country attacked us. And if a country had attacked us this morning in this vein, we would be at war right now. We would have declared war within an hour. We would have declared war. And we have to declare war, I think, on these terrorists now, and the countries that harbor them have to be dealt with just like we're at war. Congressman, this just from AP, a congressman says an apparently hijacked plane that crashed in Pennsylvania may have been headed for Camp David. Virginia Democrat James Moran says he got this information from the Marines. He says the hijacked plane that went down in western Pennsylvania was meant to crash at Camp David. Now, two other planes, as we know, crashed into the World Trade Center. Another crashed to the Pentagon. The fourth plane was probably, we don't know this, but you wonder if on the way to its mark, was it taken down by our own planes? Who knows? That's seriously just speculation right now. A lot of the stuff is still speculation, but there are things we do know. What we do know is that the planes that were hijacked, the four of them, there were 266 people aboard, including crew and passengers, and all the people on those planes have perished. American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767 en route from Boston to L.A., crashed into the World Trade Center. It was carrying 81 passengers, 9 flight attendants, and 2 pilots. The American Airlines Flight 77, a Boeing 757 en route from Dulles Airport near Washington to L.A., crashed into the World Trade Center. That was the second one. The plane was carrying 58 passengers, 4 flight attendants, and 2 pilots. United Airlines Flight 93, a Boeing 757, crashed southeast of Pittsburgh. That was the plane we just discussed. That it has been rumored, reportedly, that plane was headed for Camp David. That plane was originating from Newark, was headed to San Francisco. These were all transcontinental airlines, all with enormous amounts of fuel because they're going across the whole country, east to west. The plane was carrying 38 passengers, 2 pilots, and 5 flight attendants. And then United Airlines 175, a Boeing 767. The flight was bound from Boston to L.A., so was Flight 11. It was carrying 56 passengers, 2 pilots, 7 flight attendants. The airline would not say where that plane crashed. Let's listen to the governor, Pataki, and Mayor Giuliani.
The city and the country, the tragedy that we're all undergoing right now is something that we've had nightmares about, but probably thought wouldn't happen. My heart goes out to all of the innocent victims of this horrible and vicious acts of terrorism. And our focus now has to be on saving as many lives as possible. We have hundreds of police officers and firefighters who are engaging in rescue efforts in Lower Manhattan. I want to thank Governor Patagi for the incredible cooperation and coordination, and including deploying the National Guard that will be available to relieve our police officers and firefighters and emergency workers in the next couple of hours. The governor and I just spoke to the President of the United States. The coordination with the federal government from the time of the first attack has been excellent, including closing off the airspace around Manhattan and doing everything that can possibly be done in the face of this barbaric act to make the city secure. And we will strive now very hard to save as many people as possible and to send a message that the city of New York and the United States of America is much stronger than any group of barbaric terrorists, that our democracy, that our rule of law, that our strength and our willingness to defend ourselves will ultimately prevail. And I'd ask the people of New York City to do everything that they can to cooperate, not to be frightened, to go about their lives as normal. Everything is safe right now in the city, and the people who are doing the relief effort need all the help they can get. And then, Governor, thank you very, very much for your assistance and your help and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership through this crisis. This is a vicious attack upon New York. It's an attack upon America. It's an attack upon the whole concept of freedom and our way of life. And we cannot let these attacks succeed. The first step has to be to make sure we do everything in our power to protect the people and to save the lives of those whose lives are still at risk, and to help those who have been injured. And I want to commend the mayor, and I want to thank my colleagues from Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the federal government have all offered and made ready support to help us deal with this ongoing crisis. The people of New York are not only the freest and most diverse people in the world, we're also, I believe, the most capable of rising to meet the challenges of this type of attack. And right now, we want New Yorkers to remain calm, to go about their business, to appreciate the fact that everything to provide for their safety is being done, to appreciate that everything that can be done to provide for the health and the needs of the people who are still at risk is being done, and that we will continue to work to make sure that we get through this as strongly and quickly as possible. I want to thank the federal administration. Secretary Thompson has been on the phone with me a number of times, as well as the president, for what they are offering and prepared to do. And we're just confident that, well, this is a horrible attack and one that is despicable and really unthinkable in its magnitude. We will get through this, and we will continue to have a great and free country, state, and society.
Do we know the number of casualties at this point, sir?
I don't think we really...
That's Governor Pataki and Mayor Giuliani, obviously discussing New York and the impact it has had on our city. The skies are now clear. The 50 commercial airliners in the U.S. have reached their destination safely on the ground, so the Federal Aviation Administration now feels confident, and the United States military now feel confident that they have now secured American airspace. The New York airspace has been completely cordoned off. I'm sure Washington, D.C. has been completely cordoned off. They will not bring the president back into D.C. until the White House has been fortified completely by air and ground. They will probably do that or have already done it. Then they will bring the president back and plop him in a situation room at the White House with his staff, but they will wait till they completely by land and by air have completely secured the White House from any possible attack. And they say now airspace in the United States is now completely safe. See, usually you cannot get a plane in any way. You cannot get a plane in that's, bringing contraband, bringing drugs, or an unmarked plane or anything like that in. You could maybe fly an international airliner that is scheduled, and if it were hijacked like these planes were today, these were not international, these were domestic flights. They were all east to west transcontinental flights carrying a lot of fuel. That's why they were hit. So that's where we stand right now. The airspace in the United States has been secured. All the commercial airlines have reached their destination. Now, anyone who needs any information from United Airlines, 1-800-245-8555. That's United Airlines, 1-800-245-8555. If you are still trying to locate a person, the best way to do that is through the Red Cross. They have that operation in place. Cherney will get me that number. So we'll give you that when we can, too. I know the phone lines in the city are very, very tough to get through because of the amount of use in the city. Otherwise, on the roads right now, the Tappan Zee Bridge is open. Path trains are still shut down, but the Tappan Zee Bridge is open in both directions. That's the Tappan Zee Bridge, though, which obviously is still outside the environs of New York. You can get out of the city. You can't get into the city, in essence, is where we stand right now. We're back after this.
WFAN New York. Imagine a world without Cintas uniforms. The repair shop.
Oh, hello. Hey. Yeah, I need you to look at my car. The thing's a mess. I mean, whenever I go over a bump, I mean, the whole thing is like a gunk. And then when I try to start it, it turns over at least 4 or 5 times. Yeah, but maybe it's the muffler because I can hear it back there. It's like constantly. You got any ideas on that?
Dude, I just stocked the vending machines.
Make sure your employees are identifiable and look professional in uniforms from Cintas. No matter what business you're in, from repair shops to restaurants, Cintas can handle your every uniform need. Call 1-800-CINTAS1 or visit Cintas.com today. Cintas, the uniform people.
Hi, I'm Phil Sims for Cintas. One of my proudest moments was when I first put on my Giants uniform. And that's how your employees will feel when they wear their uniforms from Cintas. So call Cintas at 1-800-CINTAS1. Cintas, the uniform people.
Hey, you want to get a new car? What if your credit is new, shaky, or damaged? If you've been denied a car loan because of your credit, you deserve a second chance. The people at the Easy Auto Credit Line understand, and they want to give you that second chance. Give them a call toll-free now, 1-877-CAR-8777, and your credit can be approved over the phone today. It's that easy. Nobody is denied credit, regardless of bankruptcy, judgments, repossessions, slow pays, or divorce. Just call the Easy Auto Credit Line toll-free at 1-877-CAR-8777. And if you're already paying off your car, the Easy Auto Credit Line can reduce your monthly payments by refinancing your car loans. This is the chance you've been waiting for to rebuild your credit. Call 1-877-CAR-8777 today and get yourself on the road to a new car and a new start. No matter what make or model you want, the Easy Auto Credit Line will get your credit approved fast. Call the Easy Auto Credit Line toll-free, 1-877-CAR-8777. That's 1-877-CAR-8777. Call them today.
When you process 1 million rolls of film a night, you need to have a pretty robust IT infrastructure.
IBM is an infrastructure partner of Eastman Kodak.
Hi, I'm Tom McAvoy, Chief Technology Officer for Kodak's Processing Group.
Kodak processing requires secure, reliable technology.
After we process film, we can scan those images into a computer file. An operator has a chance to look at each frame, color correct, and adjust the frame to make sure that the computer file is the absolute best file that they can use, then either upload it to the internet or put on media such as picture CD. This creates very large computer files that put considerable load on our networks.
How do Kodak Labs keep up? With help from IBM.
All of those images are stored on IBM servers utilizing DB2 technology. We typically have within each individual lab approximately 1/2 of a terabyte of storage just to get through the nice production. We settled in on IBM because of the people and the overall product offering, and we've been happy with that.
IBM builds infrastructure to handle just about everything. Learn how at IBM.com/ebusiness.
Got a headache? Stomach's queasy?
Uh-huh.
It's not the food.
Oh?
You're suffering from extreme financial upset caused by today's unsettling economy. But now there's fast, superior relief. The 4% interest rate Simply Superior money market account from Superior Savings of New England. It starts working immediately, neutralizing investment risk, easing your financial discomfort.
Ah, that's much better.
Recommended by smart investors, the Simply Superior money market account is guaranteed to yield a 4.08% annual percentage yield till September 1st, 2002. And with a minimum balance of only $1,000, it won't leave your stomach or your money in a knot.
Hey, I feel better already.
Feel better about your financial health. Open a Simply Superior 4% money market account by calling 1-877-RATE-PLUS. That's 1-877-728-3758. Or visit our branches in Branford, Connecticut and the Bronx. That's 1-877-RATE-PLUS.
Minimum $1,000 balance required to obtain advertised annual percentage yield. Superior Savings of New England, member FDIC.
The number for the American Airlines, if you have any questions, 1-800-245-0999. United Airlines, 1-800-245-8555. 5. It has been just a bizarre day, and it started early in this morning, and manning the controls was Charles McCord along with Imus, and they were here for a long time, and the newsman extraordinaire joins me now, and Chuck, as this whole thing starts to wind down from the first phase, we're kind of in that limbo period now as we await to hear what our government is going to do now that they have secured airspace, probably secured our nation, at least from any air attacks. We can never say there's not another stray bomb somewhere, but probably the wave, which was so brilliantly orchestrated and executed, is probably over because it happened so swiftly. Don't you feel now that it's probably been completed by the terrorist groups and completed very, very efficiently?
Anything we say, of course, is only speculation at this point, but you do just kind of get the sense, accurate or not, that as you described it, Mikey, that the initial phase of this horrific day probably has concluded, as you were reporting a few minutes ago, with the successful termination of the flights, the 50 or so flights that were still airborne, all reaching their destinations. But I suppose in my wildest imagination, in all the years that I've been doing this, 35, 36 plus, that I would ever witness anything like this. There's nothing to compare it to. I mean, it's unprecedented. So you really do grope for words because nothing in your experience has prepared you for this.
You know, it's been written, whether it was Clancy, no matter who. I mean, these ideas have been fostered that there could be an attack, but even the State Department, with little they've leaked out today that we've heard, cannot believe the efficiency, the delicate timing, and just how precise this was. I mean, they almost can't believe, they're almost stunned that someone could pull off such an efficient attack on our country.
I think the government is in shock and the nation is in shock. I don't, as somebody was, and I've heard so much this morning for so many, that there was a terrorist attack on U.S. soil given the current time, the current tenor, surprised nobody. The magnitude and this utter, down to the second precision and the planning has shocked everybody.
As you would say, to bring plane, as you were saying to me in the newsroom, we're talking with Charles McCord, I'm Mike Francesa, WFAN in New York, to have the planes sink to the point that they could hit and be at the right destination. These are commercial airliners coming from different cities. To hit within minutes of each other is unbelievable.
Right, and just goes to the kind of planning that these people went through to coordinate timetables and schedules and to look at which airline and which company would be destined for where at what time so that they could, all of this could occur within what, an hour? Certainly.
And to take transcontinental flights, domestic flights, transcontinental flights that have huge amounts of fuel.
Yep, knowing that they would be at maximum fuel capacity.
And probably to have, again, always speculation, but you would figure they probably had to infiltrate airlines, airports. I mean, this must have been years in the making. And they said a year minimum. I think it probably had to be years in the making.
It could have been, Mike. It could have been since what was the failure in their minds of the initial attack on the World Trade Center, in that it did not bring the Trade Center down. The bomb in the garage could have been planned from that time forward, that, you know, well, we must correct this and next time we will complete it.
And Charles, isn't it, and you and I talked about this off the air, isn't it interesting from just a weird feeling point of view, that they saw those Twin Towers as their targets of what America stood to them for so long? They went after them once, they went after them again. I mean, to them, those Twin Towers meant something to them as to what America was. Capitalism, the richness, the bigness, the boldness of America. They wanted to take down those Twin Towers.
They were twin icons of this society and culture, without doubt. The tallest, the grandest, and to them, the ultimate target. Simply in the title alone, the World Trade Center. So...
All right, let's go to Christy quickly. Go ahead, Christy. What do you have?
Mike, you know, we were talking earlier about the possibility of asbestos and that concern with debris that was falling after the World Trade Center buildings collapsed. Well, evidently, some workers and residents leaving Lower Manhattan via ferry service are apparently getting hosed down as they get off the boat in New Jersey because officials are concerned about that very thing that you were saying, that asbestos contamination, and possibly these, soot-covered passengers might have, gotten some stuff on them that would be possibly hazardous to their health. So,
and that's what Bo said before, Charles, and that is that he knew that asbestos was used on all those buildings at that time when they were built. Yep. It's been outlawed since, but it's been covered up, but it's in that building, and when it exploded, there's no question there's asbestos particles that were floating around New York this morning.
It was encapsulated by federal statute and regulation. That's the way they had to handle the where it's just too difficult to remove, encapsulated. Well, the encapsulation was also obliterated when the buildings came down, so a lot of that stuff probably did get freed into the atmosphere.
More also from that press conference that Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki are actually still giving right now, but some more interesting facts that they released. Evidently, the building, they believe that the buildings collapsed as an effect of the planes that hit them, not because of some other bomb. That's what they were alluding to.
And they had said that, and Charles had alluded to this morning, and the architect, they had one of the architects on TV, he said those buildings were made to withstand the hit of a 750 or 67 plane.
Wow.
They didn't do it. They said they could withstand those hits, that they were built to withstand those hits in case of an accident, but obviously it didn't happen.
You wonder, too, if there were, bombs on board the planes that were detonated at the time.
That's possible, too. I mean, but they, as everyone alluded to today, and I heard Charles say first, and that is that you got to remember how much fuel those planes have, because they're going to California. They have an enormous amount of fuel.
Right. Also, another sad note here, we don't have the number of casualties, but Mayor Giuliani did say that firefighters and police officers were apparently among the casualty, and we don't have a number on that. Also, an update on the situation with schools. Where did I have that information? The schools are still open. They're going to be going on, normal schedule. If parents are not there to pick up their children, the kids are going to be taken to a center where parents can pick them up later. So I'm sure that information will be released on specifics and whatnot. But schools are operating normal schedule.
Thanks, Christy. All right, now, the other things that we do know, National Guard has been called in New York City. I know you're aware of that already. The governor has declared a state of disaster. The president will declare a federal disaster for New York. He hasn't yet. That obviously is important for funding and for different health and all different kind of services. So that will probably happen. We don't know about buildings open tomorrow, federal, county buildings, about what's going to happen with the stock exchanges and everything. They have not made any decisions for tomorrow yet. The way Giuliani talked, it's almost like he wants to get back to business normally tomorrow. That might be impossible, Charles. I mean, down in a financial district, it might be totally impossible.
I can't imagine it. As a matter of fact, Michael, just looking at the streets surrounding this scene of utter devastation, can't imagine him getting back to. But understandable that he would like to get back to normalcy as quickly as possible, just to send that message.
Yes, that we can just get past it, and that's why I had this feeling. Charles and I was stating this to Warner before when he called in. And that is that when the building went down, you almost got a worse feeling than when the building was hit. It's almost like you violated some American institution, and now that was almost the act of war when they dropped the building, which wherever in the world they were monitoring this, they were ecstatic that they dropped that building. I mean, to them, that was like the highlight of their lives that they dropped that building.
Sheer jubilation for them. Absolutely. Absolutely. No question. One thing, it struck me and others, if by some chance on these two aircraft that were involved in this horrific episode this morning in New York City, the black boxes survived, and the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder. The flight data recorder probably wouldn't show anything because we know exactly what happened. We watched it.
Right.
But the cockpit voice recorders, during the moment when these airplanes were commandeered, that could be very revealing, some really significant information as to who, in fact, is culpable and what has happened.
And what happened to the pilots, and everyone has made the statements, including the government, that those pilots would not, in their estimate, have flown, and I don't know this, but they would not have flown those planes into the World Trade Center. They would have taken a bullet first before they would have driven those planes or flown those planes into those buildings.
Highly unlikely. I can't imagine pilots of...
Well, you're going down anyway. I mean, you're basically they're saying which way you want to die. You might as well take the bullet because why try to kill everybody? You're going to hit the building anyway.
Yeah, but just the kind of people who are in the cockpits of our airliners, I can't imagine.
Neither can I.
No.
I totally agree. Let's get traffic. We want to update you on traffic. Charles will hang around for a minute. We want to get you updated on everything going on, whether you're in the city or trying to get out of the city. Don't try to get into the city, though. We know that. Here's Lori.
Okay, Mike. Well, right now, the Circle Line is providing free ferry service from West 42nd Street right next to the Intrepid. It will take you over to Weehawken. Waterway ferries have some limited service, too, and that's from Pier 11 on West 30th Street. That will take you over to Hoboken. Still can't get into Manhattan from any approaches. No subways going in. All bridges and tunnels are closed. No trains running in and around Manhattan. And no word yet on when that's going to change, when they'll be reopened. Pedestrians are being allowed to walk one way across the Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and 59th Street bridges. That's leaving Manhattan. No one's being allowed to walk across any bridge going into Manhattan. In New Jersey, eastbound Route 4 is shut down at Jones Road in Englewood. Eastbound 46 closed at 5th Street in Fort Lee. Eastbound Route 3 also blocked off at the New Jersey Turnpike's Western Spur, and northbound 1 and 9 closed across the Pulaski Skyway. Southbound side very crowded through the area. All the approaches to the George Washington Bridge and Hahn and Lincoln tunnels are closed. Now, the outbound upper level of the George has been reopened. Lower deck and inbound side still shut down. Hahn and Lincoln tunnels shut down both ways.
Thank you, Lori. And Charles, interestingly, no one has run the claim responsibility for any part of this. As a matter of fact, the groups have tried to run away from this.
Just as information, the senior official from the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, this DFLP, that earlier an anonymous caller had said that the DFLP had for some sort of responsibility. They're now backing away from it, vehemently denying, in fact, according to this information, that the group had any responsibility, saying the story released on Abu Dhabi television by an anonymous person is totally incorrect. That's the quote. And they quote a senior official from that organization saying the DFLP is against hijacking planes and against endangering the lives of civilians who are not connected with the struggle of this region, end quote.